Some of the biggest things that I've learned from being an entrepreneur or just running a business in general is something that we've talked about already, and it's just being adaptable. I think that, especially in today's day and age, things are changing so fast that you really just need to learn how to adapt, and more importantly, how to make it your own.
Mm.
Because in any industry, right, I could be selling candy, but like, what's gonna make it different? What's gonna make my candy different from this company's candy?
Yeah.
It's like that's on you to decide, right? And so I think bridging adaptability with authenticity, those two things are going to really set you apart. And in terms of success, that's what's going to drive success, right? If I'm trying to be somebody that I'm not, or trying to follow the footsteps of somebody else, well, quickly I'm going to run into another roadblock because, hey, that's not me.
Welcome to another episode of High Value Discussions. I had the honor to reunite with a guest whose expertise have left a significant mark in the world of videography and content creation. With over 4 years of dedicated experience, he has collaborated with hundreds of clients, delivering stunning and engaging content. His innovative approach has set him apart in a highly competitive industry. In this discussion, we will explore ways to elevate your personal brand, how to over-deliver to your clients and audience, and the strategies to stay at the forefront of essential trends. Whether you're a business owner looking to enhance your brand's visual appeal, an aspiring videographer eager to learn from a seasoned professional, or simply a fan of high-quality content, this episode promises to offer valuable insights. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Peter Murillo. It's been a long time, but I feel like so much for you personally has happened. So many adjustments, but all in a good way. Not the busyness has increased, I would say the productiveness has increased for you. But bro, since the last time I saw you, what was probably one of the most significant changes that happened to you personally, both in yourself, both in your career, both in just overall life? What is that one thing that kind of hit you where it's like, dang, this changed dramatically?
I think for me this year, it was another kind of wake up call that made me realize how much time I'm spending growing and building others and not necessarily putting that energy back into myself. And, when it comes to fitness or health, like it's there. I'm always prioritizing that for myself, for longevity, for my own peace of mind. But when it came to work, or in particular, just creating content and trying to build my personal brand, I realized like, yo, it's time to take a step back, maybe even just working so much and really focus on building that personal brand. So that's the biggest thing for me. We're halfway through the year and I haven't had too much success in kind of getting there, but it's the little steps that count. And so far, I think in the last month at least, right, I've made a ton of progress in that. So that's already a good starting point. And if I can keep this momentum till the rest of the year, then we should be good.
So funny because we were talking about that off air, how we prioritize so many people's personal branding. That's part of our job. It's part of our expertise. Like we love giving that type of value, but at the same time, our personal brand is everything as well, because that at the end of the day is what brings more momentum within our careers when it comes to networking, etc. But for you, have you noticed something personally from working with all these other people's personal brand? What do they do? Because everyone does something different, but what are the key concepts do they prioritize within their personal brand that you kind of took away?
I think consistency. One of the main things that people always look for is consistency. So a lot of the clients that I work with, they are not really just looking for, working, one video here, one video there, or, a set of photos. They're really looking for like a long-term relationship, right? And I try to establish that myself from the beginning because it makes sense. Like having someone to really focus on building your brand is better than kind of, maybe outsourcing some editing here, hiring this guy, hiring that guy. You're just kind of, you might be getting good content from all of these people.
Yeah.
But when it comes to building a personal brand, it's like building a relationship,
Yeah.
right? You really need to understand what that business or that person is trying to achieve, right? What's their target demographic, and really just testing different strategies. I say this all the time. Not all strategies are made equal. And I think now more than ever, now that social media is even more competitive than ever, it's a lot more difficult to actually grow on these platforms. So when it comes to branding, it's identifying what that business is, what are their values, what do they want to be known for,
Yeah.
how do they want to be known for, and really just choosing what audience they want to appeal to, because there's so many different industries, and even within industries we have niches, right? So that's the main thing that I always let people know right away. It's like, hey, I want to work long term. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to build your brand. And the people that have stuck around to kind of allow me to do that for them, they've had a massive success on building a personal brand. Maybe they don't have the most, viral videos or whatever. And that's something that I'm trying to work towards more, is really dissecting, what the trends, right? I
Yeah.
realize how important trends are. But when it comes to building a brand, I feel like there's nothing more important than that, right? A viral video can get you a ton of views, ton of likes, maybe a couple followers, right? But the brand is what shows up when people first go on your website, your profiles, your social media, all of that. That is your digital footprint.
Isn't it so tough to dissect the world of social media, like the algorithms, the trends, etc.? But they're there. But it's so funny. I saw a video quite recently how they were saying sometimes you need to become the trend, but that is difficult in itself, right?
That is hard. That is hard, man. I think about it all the time, and I watch videos.
Yeah.
Man, these guys or these girls, they are geniuses. I mean,
Yeah.
I give them so much props for some of the things that they come up with, and it's something so simple. Like, some of the best content right now is like real organic content that just
No
resonates.
edits, but no edits,
It's like POV this, POV that,
Mm.
just honestly, people, I mean, at the end of the day, it's entertainment, right?
Yeah.
People want to be entertained, and people want to connect, right? People want to resonate. So what I realized is the authentic content works the best with really connecting to that audience, right? We talked about building a brand, but how do you actually connect with them? It's having that authentic content that doesn't look super highly edited, super, high production. As much as I love to do that
I
stuff,
know, right?
I had to take a step back at one point and be like, yo, we need to make some changes here, because we're noticing like, okay, we're getting some good, momentum here, but it's not what we're looking for. And when you really dissect what's going on in social media, one, it's always changing, so you really just have to adapt with it.
Yeah.
But two, just realize what the people want, and that's it. You got to stick to what the people want, and that's how you're going to see consistent growth. People coming back to your page, people engaging with your content. That's really what it comes down to.
Do you have like somebody specifically in your team, or you even might even do this yourself, where you are specifically studying the trends, studying the age of social media? Because people are in my team, they're much younger. I feel like the people who are young right now, they are the future of just innovation. They are the future of entrepreneurship, and having them well adapted to this environment, they see things that I don't see. But do you have somebody in your team, or do you do this personally, where you're studying the age of content right now when it comes to social media and all platforms?
Well, I'll tell you what, the reason that I think the youngsters resonate with it more is because most trends start on TikTok. And that's one platform I don't spend time on.
I don't either.
I don't spend time on it,
I
man.
post and ghost, dude.
They say those trends come onto all these other platforms a month later. So here we are a month later. Oh wow, this is so funny.
Yeah.
When my sister over here is like, dude, that was 2 months ago. Even songs, man, songs go viral on TikTok first. And I go to my sister, I'm like, hey, have you heard this song yet? Or my bad, I'm listening to a track. I'm like, oh, this song's cool, right? And she goes, dude, that song was 2 months ago. Like, what? No, this song just came up like right now. I've been seeing a ton of videos with this song. What are you saying, right?
So
So
hella old.
it just shows that, hey, different platforms have their purposes, and I've been a big believer in that, right? And to answer your question, I'm the one kind of doing that, because
Damn.
I don't feel like my team and I kind of have that communication yet, or I haven't just designated a role to someone in particular to be like, hey, you're in charge of this, right?
Yeah.
Because we work with so many different industries, and it's kind of difficult to make something like that happen unless they're really just like dedicating hours on end to that. So
Yeah.
my strategy is really just the time that I do get to spend on social media, kind of going through different content. And luckily, I get content from the main industries that I work in, which is fitness, which is real estate, which is just content creation in general. And you'll kind of see these trends come up. And occasionally I will, occasionally I'm like, hey, okay, I got a project coming up with a client. Maybe it's a couple video package. It's like, what can we create, right? And so when I'm strategizing and working on creating solutions for them so that they can grow, I'm like, okay, well, we can create, one highly produced video and it's more of like a commercial,
Yeah.
right? But then from there, what can we do to kind of make it more personable, right? And so the trendy content is always fun. People love the funny stuff. They connect with it. They're constantly engaging with that content. So for me, it's just about, spending the time that I do have on social media and using it wisely, right? Instead of consuming a bunch of bullshit, right? It's about, okay, when I'm there, as I've said before, it's like I'm either learning something or I'm trying to keep up with the trends, right? So if I do if my Instagram time is up, well, just know that it's not being, wasted, right? So sometimes those hours do accumulate.
Hey, it's funny. They also say you need to engage, so that's something that I lack heavily because my whole philosophy within social media is to post and ghost. I don't like to be on there for a significant amount of time. Especially when it comes to the consumption part, unless I'm trying to get an idea. So usually I'll spend like 45 minutes to an hour really, really dissecting social media, the trends, what looks good. Ooh, I like this transition. Ooh, what does this sound? Ooh, what's this music? I like to look at those things, but my whole thing of like communicating with people on the internet has always been tough for me because that's why I started a podcast because I love these interactions face to face, eye to eye, breath to breath. It's like, it's better that way. It's organic. It's authentic. You know what I mean? There's like, you can't hide anything here. On this, it doesn't feel real to me. So that's one of the things that I lack because honestly, bro, we live in a digital age and you need to build that community, whether it's in person or whether it's digital. And I need to kind of switch that mindset with myself. Cause like when somebody comments on my thing, I kind of like comment back, but it's not like I'm trying to make a conversation. But that's what I should be doing instead of just like replying with some emojis or replying with like, oh, appreciate you, blah, 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 blah. Like instead of like, I appreciate you like the post. What do you want to see me do more? You know what I mean?
I'm on the same page with that, man. That's funny. I just made a post yesterday and probably 90% of it was like emojis. But I mean, it's mainly for me, like you said, very similar. It's like, okay, like how can we just get through this as quick as possible? But you're right. The engagement is so important. And when it comes to DMs, for example, it's all conversation.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
So that's why I like DMs. But comments, one, I don't comment too much on people's posts. I try to as much as I can. But it's also good because they see like, man, this guy took 5 seconds out of his day to comment on my post, right? And it's usually, friends that don't post often or stuff like that. It's like, hey, we don't really connect anymore, and this is how we connect. So with those kind of people, I do my best to really try and establish that connection. And then in terms of really starting a conversation on the comments, for example, I think there's a ton of value in that, honestly.
Yeah. And brother, since you have been in this industry for years, my man, you have so much experience under your belt. But I would say for you, what are the biggest headaches for you in this industry and what it gives you the most fulfillment within this industry?
The most fulfillment for sure is just creating. It's just getting out there and creating something, right? Often people come with ideas, often they don't. They just say, hey, make something out of nothing, right? And that for me is the passion. That is why I got into this. The biggest headache is honestly managing accounts. I mean, for my line of work, right? I don't know if in particular that's kind of what you were going with this, but for me, managing accounts can become really stressful sometimes. So, I mean, that's why it's even difficult to manage my own account, right? Because I have, 5, 6, 7 Instagram pages that I'm managing. And so could I outsource that? Yeah. Am I in the place to do that right now? Not really. I don't feel like it's there yet, right? And that's kind of one thing I've been juggling a lot this year is trying to figure out, okay, should I just keep hustling and keep doing this and, keep taking on this responsibility, or should I delegate it to somebody else, right? But to answer your question, I think creating is probably the main thing that really drives the passion. And whenever I see a video, man, it could be anything.
Right.
I'm like, that's a fucking great video. I swear it literally inspires me, man. I want
Yeah.
to go, I want to create, I want to do something. Sometimes it even motivates me to just work out, and it had nothing to
Yeah.
do with working
Yeah.
out. It's just something about a fire that it lights in you, right? It's the consistency. It's the getting better part, right? It's the always trying to improve and be a little bit better each day. And you're like, oh, I've done that before. I'm gonna try it this way now, right? And so it's always just about improving day to day, man. And
Yeah.
that's what life is about.
And I feel like that's why people like working with you. And that's why I referred you to somebody, because I was like, I know what he brings to the table. And I know it's nothing but value. I know it's nothing but greatness. And I feel like anybody who works with you, they get a feel of that right away. It's a flex when you do get clients, but it's a flex when you keep them.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what I feel like people miss. They focus on just that particular job, but they don't focus on the long-term aspect of it. Like, let's build a relationship. Let's do something long-term. Like, I'm not just here for a day. I'm here to help you. And people get a good sense of that. That's why it's good for me from afar that you've been working with the same people for a long, long time. And in all of your niches that you've worked with, what's probably your favorite niche that you like to capture and create?
Definitely the sports and fitness.
Yeah.
I think very similar to you. I think it's just embedded in our DNA at this point. I mean, we've been athletes. You're a fighter. I'm an athlete myself, and it's something about just bridging, your two passions, right?
Yeah.
It's like fitness it's part of my life, and it has been my whole life. And now that we're, in this industry, it's like, okay, you're doing something that was a hobby, and I'm turning it into a business and bridging something that I've been doing my whole life. And now it's like, wow, I'm doing exactly that. And so, to that point, when I finally got to some of the biggest, bodybuilding stages, for example, it's like, man, I'm not filming for the the Olympia itself, but I'm there with somebody that was competing there. So that to me was like, it was an awesome moment. I remember walking into one of the gyms where all the athletes are, and these are all like Olympic competitors, right? And everywhere you look, I mean, the music was bumping, like you're looking at crazy physiques everywhere. And it's awesome to see, myself kind of get to that point. And it's like, this just started with a hobby.
Yeah.
And, it kind of slowly became something that just really, that I was able to make it my thing. And so fitness for me and sports has always been something that just really allowed me to be myself. And it's something that I feel like forever will be, part of me. And it's something so important because it's such a rapid growing industry. And it's nice to be like somewhat in the forefront of that. Right. I mean, I've gotten to meet a ton of athletes, and the industry is only growing. I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, the health and wellness industry. So for me, it's like, okay, if I were to pick a niche, that's my niche, right? I've worked in all these other industries, and I love it. I love real estate. I love doing productions for different companies. I've worked in food. I've worked in all these other industries. But for me, the fitness is where it's like, let's go, man.
Yeah.
I just did an expo recently. It was like 8 hours straight. There's no problem.
Yeah.
No problem.
It's almost as natural as breathing, right? And it's so funny because like when I'm in that environment of the fight game, I am like thinking of what shots would I would want if I was in the fight game. What would I want as somebody to create for me? What are the shots and looks that I want? So that's what I like to bring onto the people and the fighters, and just overall the production and the service. I'm getting these fighters as if I'm in there, and I'm like, I want this shot. I want this angle. I want over here. I want this. I want that. So I'm trying to get multiple looks that people aren't used to. And the promoter, he's a former teammate of mine. So he knows. He's like, I see your passion when you're in there. He's like, I can tell this is your favorite stuff to capture. I was like, absolutely. Because it's always, I regret not hiring a videographer to capture my career. That's the one thing that I regret. And it's so funny because I tell my family, like, maybe I should do one more just to capture all the training camp, the ups and the downs, the crying, the this and that. Like, it's not out there. It's all in pictures.
It wasn't common back then.
That's what breaks my heart, bro. Every fighter that you talk to back then, they all say they regret it. Now, all these fighters have videographers.
Yeah.
Now everybody wants to hire somebody to document their journey. I'm like, man, why wasn't I thinking about this? Because pictures is one thing, but say if I lost a fight, crying in the locker room, I would want that documented.
Hell yeah.
Why? Who wouldn't want that? That way I can show my kids, like, hey guys, look what happened. Your daddy lost, but he still came back and won right after. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Pictures is one thing. Video, it's a little different.
And on the topic of competing, I think that is such a beautiful thing to document for oneself, like you're saying, to show your kids one day. I'm trying to find something to do, something along the lines of competing, so that I can do something similar, right? And right now I've kind of picked up running, and I think I want to kind of get into that, and hopefully maybe one day even do a triathlon, right?
That's what I want to do before I die. Triathlon.
Yeah. I mean, I want to suffer, man. I literally signed up for a race to suffer. I trained for it. It was a walk in the park, right? So now I'm going to sign up for a half marathon, then a full marathon, and, work on the times and everything. But maybe when the full marathon comes around, it's like, okay, start a little, mini series. It's like training for the marathon. And then, maybe even qualify for, other races, right? I got a buddy of mine who's got really into it too. And it's just something about the competing aspect of it. When you have a competition, it's a different type of drive. It's a different type of, every single time you wake up, it's like you get after it, but with a different mentality.
Yeah.
And something about that, it's just the aspect of competing. That's what drives that, right? And the fact that it can be documented, that'd be awesome.
I know.
Right. So I'm with you on that, man. And I definitely salute you, or I encourage you to maybe get back into it, man. Just one more round, man. One more round. It doesn't hurt.
Bro, you know what's my worst fear? I even talked about this yesterday because I was working out with my little brother and his best friend yesterday in the gym. And I was talking about entering competitions. I was like, one of the things that intrigues me so much is the intensity of CrossFit. I love the brutality of CrossFit, how intense it is. And you're suffering through every single exercise. And I like that. My whole problem is if I pursue athletics, once again, it's an obsession that ekes out of me. So every time I hit the bag, every time I go sparring to help an old teammate, those feelings come back. And bro, I've prioritized my athletics for 10 plus years and avoided everything else when it comes to family, friends, girlfriends, etc. for my athletics. So I have like this obsession disorder where it's like if I'm into something, it's very, very hard for me to escape it. And for me, going back in that competitive state, like how I was when I was a fighter, that's in a way scares me.
So would you say you have an addictive personality?
Very much so.
Very much so.
I would say addictive, obsessed.
Obsessed.
Yeah, it's pretty, like, bro, I mean, I remember being on the toilet, studying them, how they interview, how they make their captions, watching every move they make. Like, you have to study your competition and know them more than they know themselves. And that's how I approached it. I was very, very obsessed. There was nothing else I wanted to do. And if I entered a competition, that's what I'm worried about, where the obsession comes in, kicks in back again, and I'm stuck.
But is it because your priorities are elsewhere right now?
Agreed. Like all of the ventures that I'm in now, that gives me more fulfillment than the fight game. But I still have like that feeling of like, I can still compete with these young guys. I could still compete in my division. I could still compete. I know I could. Because physically, I can do whatever the hell I want. Back then, I couldn't do everything that I wanted to do mentally. Now I could.
So you're more dangerous now.
Yeah. I'm trying to, you know what I mean, minimize it. Yeah. Like, that's why I have a home gym. Because if I go to a public gym, competition. And I am worried about that. Yeah. I'm worried about entering a CrossFit gym. I'm worried about entering a gym that's full of fighters. And I'm like, oh, here we go again. We're back. You know what I mean? Because then that obsession kicks in again. I'm like, oh, I know what it's like before. I know what it takes. I know how to get to that level again. Do I want to?
Different priorities. But down the line, do you see yourself maybe not necessarily being on the competitive side, but maybe really spending more time on the education and the coaching side?
Yes. Yeah. That's a thing that I want to pass on as well. Because like, as I was kind of like discussing things with my little brother, because we founded Asset Media Productions, and we're always talking, we're always finding ways to innovate. And one of the things that I wanted to bring up with him is the education side. and we were watching some film of other people over the weekend. And I said, we have to do that, right? And we were watching other people document when it comes to their production, but they were having people on the side document them. And I said, we need to do this and expand on it and do product reveals, lens reviews, camera reviews, like all of these things. Maybe having a YouTube channel of Asset Media Productions. Like there's different ways to branch out. Going back to the whole personal branding thing, bro. Like if I want this to be what I want it to be, we have to innovate. And I can't consume so many other people when I should be delivering within what we have and stop stalling. You know what I mean? Because we do that all the time. We see an idea and we're just like, oh, I'm eventually going to jump into that venture. I'm eventually going to do that. I'm like, no. Like, I think we just need to start. Even if it's like not that great right now, we eventually need to get in the game. That's what happens within all this. Same thing with podcast production, videography, photography, all of this. Like it all happens with just starting.
And it evolves. I mean, and exactly. It starts with starting because you see all these highly produced videos or really people that just been doing this for a long time, man. So the personality is there. They know how to describe a product. They know how to make a review. You're a great interviewer, for example, right? But could you maybe review product the same way? Maybe. I wouldn't doubt it, right? But it might take a few tries.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So I think, as always, starting is the main thing. And the expansion portion of it is probably what's going to help build the brand, because it's, one thing to, again, make cool videos or whatever, but it's a different thing to be able to provide value to others through the education, right? And I think that's why some of the most successful people right now actually shifted, or let me rephrase myself. What I've noticed is that some of the people that started this whole social media game or have been in certain industries, they started as, a creator on the forefront, but quickly, or over time, should I say, they became more of an educator, right? And this happens with time and it comes with experience, right? 5 years ago, could you say that you could teach someone all the things you know about podcasting and production?
Yeah.
No, right? So I think it comes with time, but the thing is to get started, right? Because if you're going to it's like, oh, let me become an expert first, then I'll get started. It's like,
it's gonna be a long way.
A long way, man. So yeah, that's the thing, man. It's great to explore different avenues, and I think that's one thing that I've been trying to prioritize myself, is really just stop with the ideas and execute on them.
And brother, you said the topic of outsourcing in the beginning of our podcast, and I saw another video quite recently on one of his last tips. This guy said, and this guy is obviously millions of subscribers on YouTube, has made it in the game. He's phenomenal, and he said the last thing that I would advise every creator is outsource. He's like, we do not have the time to document this event, create this event, sit down and do all this stuff and get ready for our next one. He says to outsource, but I'm like with you, I'm having a hard time doing that.
I think it's a trust thing.
For sure.
And it's ourselves. It's not that we can't trust somebody else, right? It's just like, these are our projects, and we kind of maybe take too much pride in like, oh, we need to do it. We know how we want to do it. We have the idea. But when you're constantly so busy working on other things and, maybe client acquisition or building brands, other brands, right? Building businesses, and of course, just having a life in general, you quickly realize like, I have no time to focus on my branding, right? So I think outsourcing is probably one of the best things we can do for ourselves.
Yeah.
But it is difficult to find the right people.
Yes.
Right? Because they got to kind of be able to not necessarily share your vision, but understand your vision as we do with others, because we are the ones that bring the vision to life. I tell people all the time, you have the idea, I bring it to life. So let's work together and let's make it happen. Yeah. Right? So I think it's really just about finding the right people and trusting them. And it might take time, right? Just like anything, building that relationship, having that communication, and letting it be what it is at first, and, roll with it with the hopes of it becoming something long-term that will really 10x your growth.
When it comes to like, say, onboarding or bringing people into your space, your work environment, your team, I feel like you said, it's a long-term situation where you're trying to get to know people in all different facets of what they do throughout their life. So there's like green flags that we look for, but there's also what are the red flags if we do find them. Have you ever noticed any red flags or green flags that you kind of took away from the people? And what were the red flags that you did see in somebody that you're like, I can't work with this person?
For me, red flags is someone being excited to work on something and then quickly realizing like their energy's gone. It's like, whoa, you came to me with all this energy, all this momentum. Like, yeah, man, let's do it. Let's roll. Like, I'm ready.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden there's like no communication. The energy's not there. And I'm like, this is not me. Right. And even on my worst days, when it comes to grind time or, it's go time, you gotta bring that energy, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what, people feed off of energy. And so for me, maybe you don't have to be like a complete extrovert, but when I mean energy, I mean literally the desire, the passion to continue moving forward with the project. Because if that's gone, then why am I going to send you out, or why am I going to bring you in when you're just going to kind of bring that energy onto the table and it's sticky? Negative energy sticks more than positive energy.
Yeah.
So right away, I try to unassociate myself from anybody that has that. And you quickly realize how serious they are about something with literally their drive, right? They don't have to be maybe the most skilled, the smartest person, right? But they just have to have the desire and the will to learn and to move forward and to make sure that the project is finished to the best of our ability.
Yeah. Like there are some days where we're groggy, where we're tired, but when it comes time to do the job, you need to show up regardless if you're tired, groggy, you had a bad night, you slept for 2 hours, etc. You got to be on top of it. Just like this right now, right? I woke up at 1 a.m. and I couldn't go back to sleep. So I am very sleep deprived right now, but when it's time to turn it on, I'm on. One of the things about me when it comes to my principles is keep that same energy no matter what.
I think it's a presence thing too. I mean, some high rollers, you'll meet them and maybe it's the first time and, you're kind of like on edge because you may be a little nervous or, and then as soon as you say hi to them, they come in.
Yeah.
And they're like shaking your hand and they come in so fast sometimes that you shake, you have a firm handshake, right? Yeah, you have a firm handshake, but they come in so fast. You're like, oh, I didn't even expect that. So then you weren't even able to grasp so well. And it's happened to me before where I'm usually good about it. But sometimes they come so fast. I'm like, whoa.
And you're already like, oh, damn, I failed.
I'm like, I failed, damn. And it's funny because like, I know how important that initial interaction is. And so right away I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
But it's okay. It makes like, that's one thing, right? That's not going to be the end of the world. What really matters is who you are when they're around. And one thing that I've heard a lot before is, somebody was describing what it's like to be hanging out with a billionaire or what it was like to kind of be around billionaires. And they said, dude, they're just people, right? So if you can make them feel like they're just people, they're going to like you. They're going to respect you. If you're going to come and look at them and be like, oh my God, this guy's a billionaire. What should I ask him? What should I do? It's like, no. Like, don't stop worrying about yourself or what you have in mind and just treat them like a person.
And it's so funny. Going back to that, I interviewed a venture capitalist. These people are the ones that fund these startups, these tech companies, right? I went into his firm for the interview acting like it was my firm. So acting like you've been there before is another thing. I never met this man, never shook hands with this man. Like he agreed to do the interview and I was blessed for the opportunity to have his valuable time. But I sat there as if it was my firm and I've been here before. And it gave him kind of like this comfortability thing where it's like, oh, I know this guy.
How did you come in like it was your firm?
What's so funny? It's like an aura thing that I have. Like it goes back to the fighting where nothing intimidates me. Okay. Like no matter of the status, no matter his fun, no matter his size of his account, nothing really intimidates me. Like there's only two people that I fear. It's God and my mentor, Rick Soto. Those are the only people I fear. I don't know. It just goes back to like making that walk. You know what I mean? Like in the fighting, you're making that walk to nearly to death, right? So it's like if I walk into a firm, I am not fatigued. I'm not low energy. I'm not scared. I'm fully there.
What about the people that don't like that? There's people out there that do not like that kind of energy because they lack it.
Agreed.
How do you feel about those? Or how do you get along with those kind of people? Because sometimes you do need to
Mm,
maybe kind of bring it back a notch just to
yeah,
get on their level. And I
for
hate doing
sure.
it, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's not about you being a different person.
Mhm.
It's more about getting maybe a little bit more on their level to be able to understand each other. Maybe it's a business relationship,
Yeah.
right? Where, hey, I need to come down to his level
Yes.
because otherwise, if I'm just like this, if I'm me, then he's just going to be like, whoa, right? Because
Yeah.
he's not used to it.
Agreed. So it's being adaptable. It's adjusting with the atmosphere and the environment is what something that, like, I like what you said in one of the podcasts where you're somebody who goes into the room and likes to see what's going on in the area, likes to evaluate the area, which is smart. You have to do that with people too, because there's a lot of people who do have that energy and you have to adapt. You can't be like this hyper, extravagant person who is like high energy 24/7 and everybody else is like down in the dumps because they're probably going to see you as annoying. You know what I mean? So you have to adjust. If you're in a high level meeting with these execs and you're raising your hand all stupidly and like, oh my God, pick me, pick me. You don't do that. You need to stand out, but in a different way. Get a sense of the room, get a sense of the people who are in the room. And if there are some people who are high energy, oh, I like this. If there's people who are not, adjust, be calm, cool, collected. That's all it is. Just get a sense of everything, man. And you get to do that in the first interaction. You get to do that in the first time you walk into the room, how these people really, really are. And I like when it's reciprocated.
But the
I
right
like
people
that.
will always bring out the good energy.
Agreed.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
But there are people that sometimes you shake hands with, they're not about what they say they are. If people seem sketchy and if they invite you somewhere or like to meet up here and network here, enter the room just to see, just to see. Because I've done that a lot recently and shaken hands with a lot of people. And it's sad to say they're not what they say they are. And that's the sad part. I'm like, you're going to get found out eventually, right? One guy asked me, he wanted to do my services, edit everything for me, do my production services, everything. I was like, okay, let's exchange business info, like social medias, etc. His Instagram looked like he just saved photos from Google Images and put it on his Instagram. I was like, bro, you have no social proof. Like, how could I hire you to do a specific job when you have no social proof of saying that you could help me with a certain task? It's not going to work out. But get in the door no matter what, just so you see who to work with and who to avoid.
I feel like people that try to paint a picture they're not have some sort of identity crisis, right? They probably have like some sort of imposter syndrome where they want to be someone, but maybe they haven't necessarily put in the time to really become that person, right? And they rush things. For example, maybe a trainer that's not necessarily fit. It's like, hey, have you actually put in the hours to get healthy and to really make a change first in yourself?
Yeah.
And if that's the case and you made that happen, okay, then maybe you're ready to start working with others. But even then, every situation is different, every individual is different. So again, kind of going back to what we were speaking about earlier, it's that adaptation side of things where you need to be adaptable because every situation is going to be different, every individual is going to be different. And I think that the best trainers, again, or the best coaches in maybe any industry, don't necessarily focus so much on the numbers. Maybe at least in the beginning, uh, they will, but I think the good ones and the ones that stick around don't focus on the numbers. They focus on the longevity of things.
You have been in this space for a long time, and we've talked about burnout so much, and there are times where I feel like there's a halt and a pause when it comes to our personal development. Um, have you ever been at a point in your career where your personal development wasn't being a priority and it was ignored for a time? Have you ever been in that position?
Yeah, I think very similar to kind of where I was going earlier in the conversation. I think the beginning of this year really showed me that I focused too much on others and not necessarily myself. And the burnout kind of came from not seeing my own personal development kind of excel the way I know it has done in the past, relative to where it was maybe at the beginning of this year. So
Mm,
for me, it was about really just understanding that and figuring out how I'm going to go about it.
yeah.
Right. And yeah, that actually meant maybe not taking on so many projects, but for the sake of that, it's going to allow me to focus more on the personal development. Right.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, personal development for me is really just about having more me time, right? It's about okay, kind of getting in, your own mind and understanding what you want, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't do that enough. A lot of people are constantly on the go, and I mean, we are those
Mm,
people, right? But I've had a cousin tell me, he's like, "Man, how often do you just take 10 minutes for yourself out of your day?
yeah.
10 minutes to just breathe, just focus on your breath, get back to your breath, right? Rather than just go, go, go." I'm like, dude, never. He's like, not even 10 minutes? Never.
Mm,
Dude, you should try it. It's game changing. I'm like, honestly, I should. And especially in the moments where maybe you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, I think that it's good to just stop what you're doing if you
yeah.
can and just focus on your breath.
Yeah.
Get back to that equilibrium where your mind and body are kind of like, okay,
Yeah.
we're in a state of relax. Why? Because our breath got us there. And then you can think clear now and you can go ahead and execute on what needs to get executed.
Have you ever heard of a Think Week?
Think week?
Think Week. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Bill Gates does this, still continues to do it. A man of his status, he goes to a cabin.
Hmm.
No emails, no phone,
Oh, man.
no computer.
I need that.
You know what he does? Grabs a whole bag of books, case studies,
Think week.
and he just learns the entire week in a cabin. There's nothing there. There's no TV. It's the woods, beautiful environment. So I think I want to implement that with my life. Once a month, I have a Think Week. I think that will help me when it comes to my innovation, my expansion, my personal development, where I can go exercise in the woods, read outside in the woods, enjoy the sunlight. There's no TV, there's no internet, there's no nothing. It's just me and myself and I. But man, doing that for a week, I feel like it'd be a blessing. Me going to Tahoe for a week, renting out a cabin, that'd be nice, man. I
Dude.
think it sounds good, right?
Let me know. We'll leave the phones here. We'll take a good old map. We'll head down to Tahoe. We'll figure it out, and we'll just become some, man versus wild.
Bro, have you seen that? There was like this video that I saw where this group of like entrepreneurs, and there was no phones, there's no distractions, no nothing. It was just healthy food. It was an outside gym. There was waterfalls, nature, so on and so forth. All these guys sleeping on the floor, but like suffering while having high value conversations, high value environments. And it's like, I don't know how long that is, but it was like a vacation that I would enjoy. Cancun, going to here, going to this place to what, mess around, drink, etc. That's not vacation.
It's not
for
a
me.
true reset. People always like go on, I'm going to go on a vacation, man. I need this vacation. I'm going to reset. But then they come back and they're almost worse than when they came back. And, I'm no guilt. I'm no different because, I'm going to Mexico.
Yeah.
You go for a week, you come back and you were just hammered 5 days straight, right? And now you need another couple of days to recover, recoup. So yeah, I think really having even just a day out of the week and maybe even a few days out of the month to really do something like that, I think that there's a ton of value in that. And for me, for example, something that I don't do and I'm like, man, I need to start doing it. Sundays, for example, just sit down, maybe 30 minutes to an hour, and just write down all the ideas that you could work on for the week. Because earlier I was talking about, building more of the personal brand and how to approach that. And a lot of the times it's just like the ideas, like, what do I want to create? What do I want to talk about? And if you have a plan of action, then you will take action. But as of lately, it's kind of been like on the go, like, man, what should I create? What should I do? Sometimes I just turn on the camera and then you just start going with no real sense of direction. And I'm like, this is not me, right? I'm typically more of like, okay, let's figure out a game plan. How are we going to do this? And how can we do this the best way possible?
Have you ever thought about this? How much time do you have by yourself where it's silent?
Nothing.
Never, right?
Never.
So same with me. I was examining my day to day, and And I'm like, it is never quiet. That's probably one of the benefits of having a think week or a think day, etc. However you want to approach that. I drove from San Jose to San Juan, where my family lives. No music, no podcasts, nothing. Just me in the road, quiet. That was probably one of the best times ever. My room the other day, there's monitors everywhere. There's articles to read. There's markets to watch. There's things to read, etc. There's nothing on. Just me and my journal writing down. Silence. I feel like, bro, putting yourself in an environment where it's just you and your thoughts is a big, big priority, because I think you honestly innovate so much because there's so many ideas out there in our head, but it's not being polished. It's not being documented on ourselves, that when we go out and create, we're different people. And don't get me wrong, we are innovating always. We're always changing on what we're doing with our approach when it comes to our work. But it's like another way of prioritizing our personal development is having silence.
How much of that would you attribute to having a good environment for that? So I know you have, a studio, you have, your room is damn near another studio.
Yeah.
How does that attribute to the success of that?
So that's what's hard about it, right? Because I'm surrounded by noise. I'm surrounded by it. So kind of like we were saying earlier, how we never have silence. But I think going back to the whole discipline thing, you kind of needs to, it's like a wake-up call. You go to the gym, cool. It's a form of discipline. You're reading a book. You're enhancing your business. You're scaling your portfolio. But what about you? What about your silence? What about your time? So I personally, daily now, need to prioritize silence. That's one of the things that I need to work on.
And I think that's what my cousin meant when he meant like, just breathe,
Yeah.
just silence, like literally just close everything, just turn everything off and just have 10 minutes of silence. And you will see how that goes a long way.
Yeah.
And again, he said to me, do as I say, don't do as I do, because it's easier said than done.
Yes.
Right. And I think this could be a message to anybody out there. It's like, it's easier said than done, but hey, when you really start to take action on these small little things that can really improve your day, then it's really just going to allow you to grow exponentially, because you can actually think clearly. And I think nowadays, with how much caffeine people take these days and how much noise there's out there and how much distractions, it's so difficult to think clear. And I think that's why as creatives, sometimes we have roadblocks where we're just like, man, I'm stuck in this rut. How do I get out of there? And honestly, I think in any industry in general, how to get out of that is exactly having a think day or a think week where you're just like, forget everything. It's me, myself, my demons, my thoughts. Let's deal with it, right? And internally, maybe you have to deal with something that's been holding you back.
Yeah.
And I think the faster we work on addressing that issue, the more we can get back to working on the things that matter with purpose, with drive, and not feeling like, I'm doing this because I have to. It's like, no, I'm doing this because I want to, right? And that's the difference between somebody that's good versus somebody that's great, right? Somebody that's good is going to be stuck in the, I'm doing this because I have to. And you get good at it. But somebody that's great, they're doing this because they want to.
Yeah.
And it becomes a whole different ball game with how you present yourself, your persona, your aura, right? Your creative work in general. And it even shows in the engagement, the views, the value that you're giving. Some of the best creators out there, man, they are just themselves. But at the end of the day, when you're listening to them talk, it's like this whole, they're doing it because they like it thing. You can see it.
Yeah.
You can see like, man, this guy really just has a passion for this. And it shows in their work, and it shows in their aura, their energy, their personality. So kind of going back to what we were saying earlier about people kind of maybe faking until they make it. It's they haven't dealt with those issues. They haven't untapped the things that they need to tap into. And I get it. It's difficult, but the faster you block out the noise and work on it, the more you can get back to really working on the things that matter.
Yeah. Specific projects, they do take, say, hours upon our time. The gym takes hours upon our time. Traveling, going to project from project location to location takes hours of our time. But we do have to put in the hours of just silence. Brother, you have been, like I said, in the industry for so long. You've been in business for so long. What are probably some of the biggest things that you've learned from being an entrepreneur and a businessman?
Some of the biggest things that I've learned from being an entrepreneur or just running a business in general is something that we've talked about already, and it's just being adaptable. I think that, especially in today's day and age, things are changing so fast that you really just need to learn how to adapt, and more importantly, how to make it your own. Because in any industry, right, I could be selling candy, but like, what's gonna make it different? What's gonna make my candy different from this company's candy?
Yeah.
It's like that's on you to decide, right? And so I think bridging adaptability with authenticity, those two things are gonna really set you apart. And in terms of success, that's what's gonna drive success, right? If I'm trying to be somebody that I'm not, or trying to follow the footsteps of somebody else, well, quickly I'm gonna run into another roadblock because hey, that's not me. Or quickly people are gonna realize like, this is not the guy that I know. Who's he trying to be? Why is he acting like this on social media?
Yeah.
Or, it just shows when you're not being authentic. And in terms of being adaptable, in so many different ways, you have to adapt. So
Yeah.
that's kind of one of the main takeaways. At least as of this year, it's kind of been, adapting and authenticity.
I remember one time you came on my podcast, and I posted you on my story, and your lady had responded to my story saying, "I love him so much," and I said, "Hey, you got a king. He's gonna be one of them ones. You just wait." And it's so interesting, bro, in this day and age where when a man is in the pursuit of success, in the pursuit of being one of those outliers of the world, it's very hard to find a woman who understands that pursuit. It's very rare, but you are very, say, lucky. I've met a few handful of men who had found that partner for them, and they just understand.
It feels great because it's rare to find these days. And I think more than anything, it's better to just kind of paint a picture that it's still not easy, because I live a very abstract life and she doesn't, for example, right? So it's difficult sometimes when my life is very different to hers and she has to kind of see me go on a day-to-day basis, do the things that I do, where she's maybe stuck in one place, right? And she's doing great. She loves her job. She's doing awesome, but it's just the abstract way of living. It's like I'm in multiple places in one time. And she's like, you went to Capitola and now you came back and now you went here. And it's like, it's almost like, man, like, I wish I was with you kind of thing, right? And it's like, hey, I wish you were with me too. And like, I did take her to one of my shoots recently. She even helped me. It was great. We went to Sacramento. Great time. But I think going back to what we were talking about, it's still not easy because the abstract way of living is not just in work, but that's just who I am. I am an abstract person. And I think that's why, maybe I stand out in the crowd, because I'm literally abstract. Like, I'm not doing the same things that most people are doing. I'm not thinking the same way most people are thinking. And that's just the way my brain has been wired since I was a young age. And I think that's why I am where I am today, is because I've always kind of had a different way of doing and thinking, right?
Yeah.
So going back to the relationship side of things, I'm more thankful than anything for the fact that I have someone that can take a step back, listen, understand, and be like, hey, you know what? This is how he is. Let me kind of get on his level, or let me just be understanding of maybe his schedule or how he is working, even, in the nighttime when it should be just like, oh, let's sit down and watch a movie, right? But I think more than anything, having a partner that is also, more than anything, having a partner that has self-fulfillment, that can fulfill themselves, is important. Because if that's not the case, then I don't think it's going to work. Because then I have to fulfill something for you that you can't fulfill for yourself. And that's going to take away from my creativity, my downtime, or not my downtime, but that's going to take away from my time, my creativity. And it's just not where I want to be right now.
Yeah.
In the future, I could see that being very different, but I feel like having someone that can have self-fulfillment is important, because then now you have two people that can have self-fulfillment and they can drive growth to each other, and that's how they can hold each other accountable and understand each other. Because I think one of the hardest things is communication.
Yeah.
I mean, people are always like, oh, well, communication is hard, or this or that, or people don't want to share their feelings, or, they might be scared what their partner might think. But I think as long as the communication is there and you guys are understanding of each other and you can fulfill yourselves,
Yeah.
then when you come together, it's a whole different ball game, and that drive becomes different because now you're moving with two minds instead of one. And then if one mind is dangerous enough already and you have a partner that's dangerous as well,
Yeah.
then you will be just fine. And at the end of the day, I mean, you have that kind of aura, you have that kind of presence, but then when you really solidify that presence with who you really are, then it's a whole different ballgame, because maybe they had some sort of distinction of who you guys were. Are they cocky? Are they serious? Who are they? Do they think they're the shit? But it's like, no, we're human, just like you. Let's connect. Let's grow.
And it's so funny. It goes back to the whole personal development thing, where it's not being a priority, because if, like you said, if people don't have that self-fulfillment, they're going to be scratching and clawing, wondering when you're going to come home.
Yeah.
People say in the entrepreneurial space, you can't be married. You can't be in a relationship. You can't have kids. And I'm like, I think that's like a very loser mentality in your life.
All that's saying to me is you can't handle the stress.
Exactly.
Right. That's like one more stress I got to deal
Yeah.
with. Don't do it. And I've had people say that in the past, where like, they kind of just said like, man, well, how fast do you think you would excel if you just had no distractions, no girlfriend, nothing, right? And they're just speaking in generality,
Course,
right?
yeah.
They're just saying like, do you think things would be different, right? They're asking me this question. Maybe I'd have a little bit more time or this or that, but I don't think it would necessarily translate to more success, because the success that I've had has been because of having a partner that I've been able to come back home to, talk about the things that are on my mind. You have that's your second hand man right there. That's your partner, where you really come home and maybe there's something that you have no one else to talk to, but you're like, hey babe, I have this going on. What do you think? Right. And sometimes you just need someone to talk to. And it's funny because it happens all the time. I'll say like, hey babe, what do you think about this? And then she'll give me her opinion, and I'm like, thank you for sharing, but I'm going to do this. Right. And she's like, so why did you even ask me? It's like, baby, I just need to talk out loud sometimes,
Yes.
And it's like, it happens more than often. And, it is what it is. But I am trying harder to really, and look, because I'm trying harder to really take what they're telling me, because sometimes we are blind to what they're telling us. Like we're so caught up with, this way of thinking, when in reality, they are that person on the outside looking like, hey babe, why don't you do this?
Yeah.
Right. And on the topic of that, often that can really lead to choices that could lead to doors that you didn't even think of, because you were so stuck on one thing and they're telling you like, hey, why don't you do it this way?
Yeah.
Right. And then you're like, okay, you know what? I'm going to try it. Wow, babe. Or sometimes it's just like, babe, I didn't even think about that. That's crazy. Right. And then you apply it and it works. Right.
Yeah.
So it's always good to have a partner. And I think, going back to somebody that is like, oh, I shouldn't, or you shouldn't have a partner. Right. I think that the more stress you can handle, the more likely you are to be successful.
Yeah.
I think in this generation, if you are even just remotely a savage, right, as Dana White said, then you are going to walk over everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And I think having a relationship is one of those things. It's like, it's going to come with stress. It's going to come with hardships. But if you're even just remotely savage, you're going to do great, because in this society, there's so much distraction. There's so much people wasting time. And if you just can even be that person that stands out, then you're going to be okay.
But it's a weird thing, even for me, if I'm not doing something, say, challenging or difficult throughout my day, it's like I'm not myself. I crave that stress. I crave that putting that puzzle piece together and solving an issue, I genuinely crave that. I really, really do.
Yeah, I mean, you sound like an entrepreneur, man. You sound like somebody that is a problem solver, somebody
Yeah.
that really thrives in finding solutions to things, right?
Yeah.
And I think as a man, that really brings fulfillment. And I think that's what we've been doing for generations on top of generations.
Yeah,
And
man.
it's just one of the things that really keeps us going, I feel like, as men. And I crave that all the time. And I
Yeah.
just, I think I said earlier, I joined the race. It was a 10K run just to kind of challenge myself. And I thought that the 10K was going to make me suffer.
Yeah.
But then you start training for the race maybe 2 months out, and you run the race and you're like, man, this was easy. Like, and I didn't even really train all that tough. I was running like, 3 miles on end.
Mhm.
It was a 6 mile race, 3 more miles, walk in the park, right? So my point here is I'm constantly looking for ways to challenge myself.
Yeah.
And especially in sports, I feel like it's a great way to do exactly that. When it comes to lifting, you're always trying to lift more, trying to lift heavier, trying to do more reps. Now that I'm running, I'm trying to, drop the times per mile. I'm trying to increase the distances, right? I'm constantly finding ways to have that feeling of suffering, because I feel like when you come out of that, that other side of it, there's growth. And even doing the things that are difficult, doing the things that you don't want to do, as simple as a cold plunge, right?
Mhm.
People hate the cold.
Yeah.
I maybe don't necessarily like being in it. I don't think anybody genuinely is like, oh, I like cold, right? It hurts, man. And it's like if you're in 30-degree water, it's gonna be cold. You're gonna start hyperventilating.
Yeah.
But what comes after,
Mhm.
right? And so when it comes to challenging yourself, it's always on what's on the other side of the road, because that's what really brings fulfillment and that's what brings growth. And so for me, just like yourself, I'm always looking for the next challenge.
Yeah. And I kind of did something ridiculous because the friend that I was talking about, every time it's his birthday, he runs those miles. Turns 29 this year.
Oh, gosh.
So what does he do? Because he's a high level runner. He actually could have gone to the Olympics. That's how high level he was. Shattered records in college. He was like an animal. And he talked about, like this year I'm going to do 29 miles. I was like, let me do that with you.
Wow.
I don't run.
That's crazy, man.
But I haven't been a cardio machine since I was a fighter.
Yeah.
My priority right now has just been lifting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because I've never been big. I've never, had like solid muscle when I was a fighter.
Yeah.
I was just always prioritizing cardio because you need to as a fighter. And I was like, you know what? That is a crazy way to suffer. Do 29 miles. The most I've ever ran was 10 miles. 29 miles is ridiculous. But that gives me like that eagerness where it's like, dang, I want to see how my body can do that.
Oh,
I've
definitely.
never done that in my life. And my family's laughing at me like, dude, those shin splints are going to kill you.
Dude, your freaking heels are going to hurt. You're going to tap into a freaking side of you that you've never seen before.
Yeah.
And if you do come out of that, then you're going to come out a different person.
Yeah. And
Because-
that's what I'm trying to like unlock. You
And
know what I
running
mean?
does that. Running does that. And it's funny because I was a sprinter. I ran track.
Mm.
I did 100 meters, 200 meters, maybe a lap around the track, 400 meter, right? But something about running long distances never really did,
Mm.
right? And so that was almost like, not necessarily a fear, but it was like, that's going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
And when I started and I picked up running at the beginning of this year, I realized like, okay, this is something that's just not going to get easier. Why? Because every time you get better, okay, now there's another milestone.
Yeah.
You hit 3 miles, now you hit 4. Now you got to hit 5. And so kind of going back to what I was saying is like, I'm always seeking for a challenge. So it starts off with a 10K, then we're going for a half and a full marathon. Then, why not do an ultra marathon? It's 100 miles, right? And even more so, why not step it up a notch, do a triathlon,
Yeah.
right? So these are kind of the things that I'm thinking. How can I stay competitive? How can I be competitive? How can I stay an athlete? And it's doing things like this, right?
Yeah.
It's doing things that bring or light that fire in us. And it's something as simple as just signing up for a competition
Yeah.
and going for it.
Yeah. 110%. Well, brother, we're getting to that time right now. And I have 2 more questions for you. Okay. Say this podcast was your podcast. You're the host of High Value Discussions. If there was a specific question that you wanted to ask me, what would it be?
Where do you see this podcast going in the next 5, 10 years?
Somebody asked me that quite recently, and he asked me that kind of similar. He's like, where do you want this podcast to be? What do you see this podcast to be? I'm in a very high competitive space when it comes to entrepreneurship, self-development, business, etc. There's a lot of podcasts out there that have that and bring that kind of value. My whole thing is to interview the outliers of the world, interview the best people in their specific space, and ultimately be the number one platform when it comes to entrepreneurship, personal development, and business. Is that a difficult task because all the people who are ahead of me? Absolutely. But going back to the whole competitive space, it's like, I like that, man. I even listen to some of the people who are in my space. I like that. Do I hope to have them in my podcast one day? Absolutely. That day will come. But ultimately, bro, it would be to be the ultimate space when it comes to value. Like if you listen to this show, I just want to make sure you get some value out of it. What is this called? High value discussions. People press play, whether I watch it on YouTube, listen on Spotify or Apple Podcast. You're going to get value regardless because of who comes on. And it's a very diverse group of people who come on. It's not, every episode is different. It's their expertise in their field. And they all bring something different to the table. And then that's a way for someone to use and to implement into their day-to-day because I get to do that. The things that you mentioned to me today, I get to, even when I go back and edit this, man, I'm like, dang, Peter said a good nugget there. I like that. You know what? I'm going to try this. Even when you rehear this back, you're going to think of the think week, the think day. Gosh. You're going to really think about them. Like, could I actually utilize this? It's a way where you leave with value, whether you're listening, you're watching, or the interactions here.
Yeah.
But ultimately, man, be the ultimate space when it comes to value, entrepreneurship, business, personal development, because at the end of the day, that's what grows the world, period. So that's where I see it being, whether it be 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, 25, however long it takes, man. I'm never going to stop doing what I'm doing. I can't.
And I know the production is only going to get better, man.
My God.
You know, it's from start to where you are now.
Yeah.
It's been a long way, long road, but I can see the growth. And I love when you share, where it started versus where I am now. And you see young Daniel and
no facial hair.
No facial hair. And God, you look younger. And I'm sure the conversations were different. The tonality was different. The aura was different. And it's just nice to see how even this is not only helping others, but it's helping you become a better person.
Yeah.
And I love that because you found something that can really provide value to others, but also you found what you really want to do and how you can even monetize it and how you can really do something that's going to make you a better person. Every single conversation is making you a better person. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you, my brother. And my very last question to you, my man, your expertise when it comes to business, the whole personal development, you as a creator, what's probably one of the biggest pieces of wisdom that you want to pass down to the audience?
Don't give up. I think it's one of the things that people can often run into, and it's like they start something, but they don't finish. And if that would have been me 3-4 years ago, starting something as a hobby and not really going with what I knew it could be, then I wouldn't be anywhere. I don't know where I would be. An example of that would be I started making music before I started doing any of this. And it was production. I wasn't singing or anything.
I'm like, dang, I want to listen to that.
I'm a big EDM guy, right? And so for me, I was actually trying so hard for a year or so to make music. And I'm looking at a blank canvas and fucking sound by sound trying to make something out of nothing. And I did stop that. But I quickly realized, hey, this is maybe not for me. And I quickly moved into video creation, content creation, social media, all of that. And if I had one takeaway, it's don't give up, because it sometimes might feel like you're not progressing the way you need to progress. But at the end of the day, some progression is better than no progression. And even I myself, who's been doing this for a long time, I know that I am nowhere near where I want to be. And I look at everybody else around me as examples, because I know that there's so much to accomplish. But if I give up now, then I'm never going to get there, right? And I'm never going to have that one step that's going to help me get there closer and closer. So the one takeaway is don't give up. The little wins matter. And it could be even reading a book, focusing on your health, focusing on your personal development, picking up a camera, talking to the camera, doing whatever it takes doing whatever it takes to really make something happen. And it's the small wins. And I know we're often tied up with time and our energy is very limited, but it's plan and execution. So when you have plan and execution and you don't give up, it's no stopping you.
Yeah.
It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of
110%.
time. Yeah.
My brother, are there any closing statements you'd like to give for the podcast?
Closing statements, man, would be, thank you very much for all the hospitality, man. It's always great to see you, and I'm
Always,
excited
brother.
to see where this show is going. And honestly, I can't wait to really get in front of the camera more, man. This show inspires me to really just let that personality out. I mean, people see me make cool videos all the time, but I want to share more about
The
what's
long
on
format,
my
bro,
mind,
is
dude.
different,
There's so many
right?
things on my mind every single day, and kind of going back to just like the document to just start. Dude, I'm about to just put a camera rig in my car, mic it up, and just have it, because there's like some of the best conversations or thoughts, should I say, happen in car rides. So I have so many ideas, and I want to say thank you for once again lighting a fire in me to really just go out there and create more. So thank you, brother.
Well, brother, like I've said this off air, I've said this to people, that you are the best in this space that I've seen around here, honestly, in the Bay Area, period. And I've recommended you, and even for you, brother, it's an inspiration from afar to see what you're doing and the leaps and bounds that you are making. And I know we've tried to like hang out afterwards, but like I said, we were productive for our own good. But brother, keep on the success, my man. You're killing the game, and I look forward to see you make more leaps and bounds in the game, my man. All right, brother?
Much love.
Thank you all for tuning in to today's episode. If you got a lot of value out of this, please do me a favor and support our channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Make sure to hit that follow button on Spotify to stay updated with our latest episodes. And if you are listening on Apple Podcast, I would greatly appreciate it if you would leave a 5-star rating, followed by with a review. Again, thank you all for the support. Stay loving, stay hungry, and stay excellent.